This will be for the con exercise. Power rule, positive integer powers. All right, so if the function is in the form of f of x equals a times x to the n, where a and n are non-zero constants, we can use the power rule to find the derivative. In other words, differentiate. Okay, the constant term a and the exponent n, they cannot be zero. So to find the derivative, you multiply the entire function by the exponent n and decrease the exponent on x by 1. All right, so in other words, you take this n exponent right here and you move it out front and multiply, and this exponent right here becomes n minus 1. You decrease it by 1. All right, so the derivative f prime of x is going to equal n times a times x to the power of n minus 1. All right, it's much simpler than it looks when we get to the problems. All right, so the derivative, that's just a slope function, and it allows you to find the slope at a certain point. In other words, if you write f prime of 3, that's the slope at x equals 3. All right, and if you see d over dx, d divided by dx, that's just a derivative with respect to x. All right, and if you see dy dx, that's the equivalent to f prime of x. All right, so let's get to the problems. All right, so here we have y equals x to the 13th. They want us to find dy dx. That's the equivalent of f prime of x. All right, it's the same thing. It's just a different notation. All right, so if you have y equals x to the 13th, and you want to use the proper notation, all right, what you want to do, and you don't always have to do this, but I'm just showing you. What you want to do is d over dx to both sides of the equation. All right, d over dx to both sides. All right, and over here, d over dx times y, that's just going to be dy dx. And on the right-hand side, we are just differentiating x to the 13th. All right, so if you have x to the 13th, and we said you take that power, that exponent, and you move it out front, so that's going to be 13 times, and the exponent is going to be 13 minus 1. All right, so that's just going to be 13x, and 13 minus 1 is 12. All right, so d dx of x to the 13th is going to be 13x to the 12. Okay, it sounded more complicated because I wanted to show you the correct notation, but all we did, we took the 13, we moved it in the front, and we decreased the 13 by 1. So it's going to be 13x to the 12th instead of to the 13th. All right, pretty simple. 13x, shift 6 to get the exponent, and 13x to the 12th is the derivative. All right, here g of x equals x to the 5th. They want us to find g prime of x. All right, pretty simple. So we have x to the 5th, and we're going to take that exponent and move it out front. So that's going to be 5 times. That's going to be 5 times x to the 5th. And the exponent gets decreased by 1. So that's going to be 5x. And of course, 5 minus 1 is 4. Done. 5x, shift 6 to the 4th. All right, so these are easy. Here they want f prime of x. All right, so we're just going to move the exponent out front. That's going to be 2x. And the exponent on x, instead of 2, it's going to be 2 minus 1. And that's going to be 2x to the first power, which of course is just 2x. Simple.